I'm Patrick McGinnis, hanging out with the casting crew of Ira and Allison's Murder Mystery, the latest feature film from R. Todd Productions, and I'm sitting down with one of the executive members of R. Todd Productions, Joe Koch, who was a producer on the film. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Now, tell me a little bit about how this film came about.
So the way the film came together, Ryan has been working on the script for quite a bit of time, and so him and I I actually just moved to Arizona, so we'd taken a little bit of a break, and he emailed me and said, hey, I've got this great script for you. And I started reading it, and I just instantly fell in love with it. I thought it was an amazing script. It needed some revisions, but it was a really good start. And so as soon as I did, I said, I got to get involved in this somehow. And so we started just talking it through, and we decided to bring our companies together, Deep Gray Productions, my new company, Nerd Boy Media, and then R. Todd Productions, really just so we could hit this thing with all facets and just go at it. It is really kind of how we came to it, but it all started with him sending me the script and just falling in love with it right away.
So you knew right from reading the script that you wanted to be a part of it, you wanted to produce it.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I read the script, I thought this was the best script he had written to date, and so I wanted to get involved. I thought it had a good formula, it had all the elements that a good script needs, great characters, and it's a single location. So we're shooting in one location, which makes the production side of it a lot easier. And with me being in Arizona, I felt like, okay, this is something we could actually accomplish. And then we started to put together our timeline and said, we could probably do this really quickly, on a lot faster timeline than we expected. And so we ended up settling on a 4-day production schedules, and we're gonna go at this and we'll get this done in 4 days. Because we're shooting one location, Ryan likes to do a lot of single shots. He had this vision, and I actually thought it would work. It really does play a lot like a play on film, and it works out really well.
A lot is really done in pre-production. Can you tell me a little bit about your role in pre-production?
Yeah, so pre-production was really important on this film, especially because I'm not in California anymore. So for me, it was a real challenge because I'm so used to having all these meetings and being able to sit down with everybody. I did everything through FaceTime or through the phone and internet. Even when we were auditioning, we would cast it, he would send me everybody's casting footage, and I'd have to go through it, and then we'd have to sit down and have our conversation, say, okay, what do you like, what don't you like, so we could come up to it. So the role really was, as the producer, was really a lot more difficult not being here. When we would do our on-site walkthrough, I wasn't there, and generally I would be there to help say, no, we can't do this doesn't fit our budget, or how are we gonna do this shot in the timeline we have when we also have this big shot over here we have to do. And so I really had to rely on Ryan to do some of the pre-production, but I was, along the way, we talked every single day, 2-3 times a day, FaceTime, collaborated via, iCloud or Dropbox, etc., to put the budget together and really put this thing together. It was a little bit different doing it from another state.
So it sounds like technology actually played a huge part in being able to make it happen.
Absolutely. I would put the budget on our Dropbox, and then he could look at it any time. We used YouTube to look at casting videos. Basically, we relied on technology on this one, especially just because of the distance between us.
Now, I know that Ryan is attributed as the writer-director on the film, but you also played a part in the writing process. Tell me a little bit about that.
I did. Ryan he did the writing. I did all the treatments. So what would happen is, after Ryan would structure it out, he would send it to me, and I would give him 200 notes, and then he'd go back and he would rewrite it, utilizing my notes and trying to fit the style, and then we would talk about each note. And we did that 7 or 8 times until we got to a point where we had enough of the story and the funny moment. So we really had to balance that. It was through that collaboration we came up with some great ideas, and that continued all the way to even when we were on set and shooting. There's a spot where a tennis ball is supposed to be thrown at Ira's face, and during the day we were getting there and it taking time to shoot it, and Brian Donahue, who played Bernie Sharp, was supposed to throw the ball. And so we were talking about it, and I was like, if this goes bad and this hits him in the eye and he ends up with a black eye, and we're going to go back and shoot scene 1 later tonight, continuity is going to be a problem. So I thought, it'd be a lot funnier if we aimed at a little lower region on his body that might have a little more impact. So even through the collaboration, it goes all the way, and the actors would bring pieces that you just never even thought of.
When producing this type of film like we've been talking about is the challenges of doing it from Arizona, but there's a lot more challenges on top of that. I mean, you're married, you have a job. Talk about a little bit about your life in Arizona and what it was like to produce a film in California from there.
Yeah, it's a challenge. So I just moved in March. I'm married. We got cats. We got a dog. And ultimately coming out here to even shoot, we had to plan. Okay, so we're gonna drive out on this day. We're gonna come out on the Thursday beforehand or the Friday beforehand. We're gonna shoot all day, Saturday, Sunday, and then we're gonna drive home. And then I have to be at work Monday morning for my career. So that's a huge challenge just in itself. And then also balancing, okay, I've got to take a couple hours now to work on this while I'm still unpacking boxes or still trying to actually start our life in Arizona. It was a huge challenge, but it's something that after doing it now, I realize I can still do this and I can still be involved in film even though I'm in Arizona. I was a little bit worried when I moved that I'd have to kind of give this up because it was something that just didn't seem feasible. How can you produce a movie when you're in another state? You're not there for all the production meetings, and it continues even in post-production. When we want to do a cut, before I would just come over, we'd watch the cut, and I'd say, okay, let's start rearranging and do this. Now it's, okay, he puts it all together. Ryan is cutting it right now. He puts it all together, exports it, sends it to me. I have to watch it, give him my notes, and then he has to go back and do it. And so we have to kind of work on a real-time system where it's not as easy as it was before.
But it sounds like even though there was a lot of revisions that took place, a lot of work that went into it, it still is moving pretty fast for an independent film.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about the timeline and when it began, when you started production, when you hope to premiere.
Yeah, so we started, I got the script from him in April. We went from April to, I want to say it was August is when we shot. So it was April to August in pre-production, and that was actually the longest period because we shot over 4 days. And then as soon as we were done, he immediately went out and started actually production or post-production on it, and we're actually already at a first cut, and we're really close to film lock.
And you've seen the first cut.
And I've seen the first cut.
Are you happy with it?
I'm very happy with it. I mean, I'm pretty critical of my work, so there's still some things that I see, I'm like, how'd that happen? But that's typical with an independent film when you're shooting 4 days, 20-hour days. You're gonna have those moments, but yeah, the whole production period actually was really fast. I actually don't think we shot in August. I think we shot in October, but it was really fast. It just was, before you know it, it's here.
Right. And working with Ryan, such a close relationship that you guys have, and obviously such a good working relationship. What's that like? What's that like going into a project, and then what's that like on set, that dynamic?
Yeah, Ryan and I have worked together now on multiple projects in theater in the past, and we have developed a rapport where we joke and we kid a lot, but it's with all seriousness, we have a plan and a goal.
You were talking a little bit about your past projects, working with Ryan, working with his team. How do you compare this to your past projects?
This was the most ambitious project we've done to date. We did 2 feature films prior to this with R. Todd we shot over a course of 3 or 4 weeks and super low budget, grabbing friends, anybody we could to even be in the acting in it. This one we said, let's get a little more serious. Let's shoot it over 4 days, but let's put some time and thought into production design. Let's put some time and thought into the actors. In the past films, we would bring an actor in who is just off the street, like, hey, you're my friend, you want to be in this movie? Sure, okay, well, come and just wear whatever, and then you've got a character who's not dressed appropriately, it just doesn't fit, works kind of gets it done. And it was a learning experience, but this one we really wanted to focus on all elements of it, from everything from what is hanging on the wall behind the shot to what the character's wearing to even the jewelry they wore. Everything was all done appropriately this time. We really focused, whereas in the last one, sometimes we just focused on getting it done. This one we focused. We knew we had 4 days to do this in, so we had to do a lot more in pre so that when we hit production, we were rolling. And I think we did a much better job in those aspects. I think we hit certain things a lot better, specifically production design.
I'm sure it helps having 3 different production companies all working together on it. What was it like working with 3 different companies, and how did they interact with each other?
It was great. Ultimately, I have a piece in all 3 companies, so it kind of works out well. Deep Gray brings a lot of equipment and a lot of talent. They're award-winning film company. They've done stuff that's done really well in the world stage, I guess you could say. And then my company is brand new, and so my company is more focused on some of the social media aspects, publicity, creating content for different websites or products.
That's Nerd Boy Media?
Yeah, that's what Nerd Boy Media does. And then our Todd has been focused solely on the feature.
So tell me in specific terms, what exactly was the budget and shooting schedule for the film?
So our budget was set, we kind of put it into a couple different pieces. We had our production budget, and then we have our post-production budget, which we're still raising the money for our post-production budget. But our production budget itself, we were at roughly 2,000, 2,500. I'd have to look at the exact number. I think we're about 2,500. And that was to purchase a few pieces of equipment we didn't have, and that was to pay for a couple pieces that we needed. So ultimately our production budget was about 2,500, and we're expecting our post-production to be about the same, which also includes renting the theater that we're going to premiere it at. So ultimately our entire production budget, we're at about $5,000, and we'll probably go a little bit over when we start getting into festival submissions and whatnot. Our actual shooting schedule was a strict 4 days. We had 4 days in our location, and we couldn't go beyond that. And we shot basically 25-hour days. I mean, I know it's impossible to shoot 25 hours, but I say that because we would go from day one into day two, and then maybe sleep for an hour or two, and then start again.
Tell me a little bit about how you, along with Ryan, put together this casting crew.
So it was kind of an interesting thing when, in the past, with our Todd, we like to typically cast friends and people we know. We did a lot of theater, so we have a lot of theater connections, a lot of people we know. But we'd done that for the last couple of films, and we kind of burnt through a lot of those people, and some of them were really good, and we've continued to work with them, and some of them a lot of these people too we're working with, this isn't their career. They did theater in college, they maybe have moved on to something else, they're not really actors. And so that leaves us with a challenge where when you're shooting a 20-hour day, their drive to do that is not very good. They don't understand, sometimes they just want to rush through stuff and get home. So we wanted to do something a little bit with a real casting call and a little more professionalism, but we also wanted to still stick to our roots of people we know. So we actually did is we went through Facebook. As weird as this may sound, we went through people's pictures and we looked for headshots. If somebody had a headshot of a connection of a person we knew, we would send them a message and say, hey, we have a script, are you interested? And we told them up front, we're shooting on 4 days, it's a micro budget, what our goals and aspirations were for the film, and then said, are you interested in coming in and auditioning? So it's not like we emailed people and said, hey, this is what we're doing, it's gonna be this amazing project, and they come in and, well, no, we're doing it in 4 days. And so we were really upfront with them, and then we did a basic audition process, and then we would review and then cast. So most of these actors have connections to either a friend of ours or a friend of a friend who are in the industry. So it's kind of a neat way of doing it, is utilize something like Facebook and YouTube or friends to find these people.
Tell me what it was like on set, what you did to execute the filmmaking.
So on set, Ryan and I have to wear multiple hats. When you're doing a micro budget, you can't afford to pay a big crew to come out and have 10 grips, and so we really had to do a little bit of everything. And in this one, I specifically I produced it, so I did that on set as well. I basically was also the assistant director with Ryan. So since Ryan's acting, he can't be watching the monitor, he can't see, so he has to rely on me to be his eyes and ears. And I didn't really want him to focus on directing. I wanted him to be able to focus on acting, but still have his style and what he's trying to accomplish come through. And then also I was production design, which is one of, like I mentioned earlier, one of our major flaws in our past couple films. We didn't really have a production design, so I kind of stepped in and said, you know what, I worked with the art department, and I made sure that everything from what the actor wore to how they looked, to the jewelry, to what was on the walls, to what is on the table, everything fit what we're trying to do, along with the lights and everything is in our theme. And that was something that we'd never done before. That was a real good learning experience for me. I really enjoyed that, and something that I think is going to make a huge difference in the film.
And what was challenging about working in production design for the first time? Any unexpected things come up that you were like, well, I didn't know that was, part of it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm not a wardrobe person. I'm not a hair and makeup. I obviously didn't do those things, but I don't have a lot of connections in that realm because I've never really worked there. So it took a little bit to find the right people, but between that and we used, my wife provided jewelry for the film. I had a friend who's actually a professional makeup or learning to become a professional makeup artist, and we brought her in. We kind of relied on the actors for their wardrobe. I had them send me all pictures, and I would go through. And we used a girl named Anna McConnell for set design. She actually designed the posters, and I mean anything from the little nuances, like there's a wedding photo that hangs on the stairs, and she actually edited the Ryan's wife, his real wife, out to put in Kelly, who plays his on-screen wife, and then actually it's her picture on the thing. Little things like that, or on the nightstand next to the bed.
A lot of detail.
Yeah, we really wanted to put a little bit more into it. And that and the continuity of when something should be on the table, when something shouldn't be, the what's in the glasses. I kind of had an idea what I needed to do, but where I felt like I wasn't sure about was more the makeup and the wardrobe, and kind of learning as I went. But that was a good experience. But I really wanted to make sure we focused on those details that we had never really done before. That's how you kind of take those growth steps, and that was one thing I think we really did well on in this film.
While we're still talking about the production, anything pop out at you as a funny moment on set? It could be something you were filming, or maybe off set, just a funny moment.
There was when you're on set for 60 hours with, in a sense, a mini family, because they're there for so long. There was a lot of moments that we laugh about. And Ryan and I always joke. We like to reminisce on this, and we go back and we talk about it. But Ryan Willard took a shot in the crotch from a tennis ball. That's anytime Ryan gets hurt, it's funny to me. It makes me laugh. That's kind of our relationship, though. We had moments like those, or we even had a moment where the DP was just so tired he fell asleep. He was just done. He couldn't go further, and it was like, you can only push these guys so far. But we had that. That was kind of a funny moment. Or actually, his cousin tried to wake him up, and it was just a funny exchange between them. So you have little moments like that. And even just, it's really a blur by the end of it, because 60 hours, day turns into night, turns into day again, and you're just kind of Red Bull and coffee, and there were some fun moments, but I really do think my favorite is watching Ryan get hit with the tennis ball. I think that was just especially at that moment, I think I was a little angry at him, because he had said, we'd had a bickering moment upstairs, and I was like, whatever. And so then here we are downstairs, and I got to watch him get hit by a tennis ball.
Revenge.
It was good. It was my idea, so it made it even better. It was like, hey, forget the face, let's go for something a little more painful.
But it's interesting to talk about a 20-hour day when you're producing a film, to keep your crew and your cast going for that long.
Oh, yeah.
What did you do to actually get them to push through 20 hours of straight shooting?
It's really difficult because, your body requires certain substance to continue to go. John Zuber, a buddy of mine who works with Deep Gray and has been a partner of mine and stuff.
Who plays Donnie?
Yeah, he actually does play Donnie, and he always has a great analogy that, if your body is like a car, you've got your food, which is like your gas, and then sleep, which is the battery. And if without those two things, the car doesn't work. Just like a camera, without the battery, it's not going to work. So in order to kind of do that, we made sure, we gave lots of meals, lots of snacks, there's lots of coffee, plenty of Red Bull, a lot of things that keep you going, but there wasn't just sugary snacks that make people crash. There's also healthy foods there, and just kind of being upfront with people ahead of time. We did not want anybody to walk into set and go, oh wow, we're really going to go till 3 a.m. We told everybody ahead of time, we're going till 3 a.m., we're not going to stop until we're done with these shots. And, and you allow, though, these people that are, some of them volunteering their time, if you need to go take a nap, or you need to go outside and decompress for a few minutes, go for it, because Ryan and I are going to push through, and we've done this multiple times on our last films where we'll shoot 20 hours. We're a little bit more prepared for that, and so we know how to push through it a little bit, but some of these people we're working with maybe have never done that, so it's really just, let me help you, go ahead, take that time to yourself, do what you need to do, but Ryan and I ultimately are going to carry the load and just, keep pushing through it. It's not an ideal situation in the end, because anytime you're working 20 hours, you're going to see in hour 17 and 18, you might lose a little quality in your film, and that's a challenge that you just, in our situation with our budget, we had to kind of push through.
Right. A lot of these jobs that you were performing is because you were working with such a small crew. Now, what's it like as a producer to be producing a film under such tight deadlines with a skeleton crew? Yeah,
it's a challenge, and luckily our crew and our cast, really, for that matter, we got lucky. We had a very fun cast. Everybody's having a good time. You didn't have any of those issues where I don't like this person, I don't want to be here as long as possible. Our crew most of them are out of college, so they're still learning the art, and they're still kind of some of them, this is their first feature film or their first time on set. So you have those, but you know as the producer, if the light needs to be moved, you're going to move it. And if it means me doing it, even though maybe that's not my title, you're still going to do it. And that was kind of the same thing, you know, with Ryan on this one. Normally Ryan would be with me behind the camera working it, but he's acting in this. So it was, you know, I didn't want him to have to worry about running extension cords, moving stuff. So it was just really making sure that stuff got done and just being, you know, for me, I never stopped. You know, some of these other guys could take breaks. I had to kind of keep going to make sure we're hitting that deadline. I mean, people told me I was crazy when I said, hey, I'm filming a feature film that's 90 minutes in 4 days. And they're like, it's not going to happen. You know, you're crazy. But we did it, so.
Proved them wrong.
Ha!
Right?
Ha!
We were talking a little bit earlier about one of the many jobs you had on this film was a production designer. Were there any pieces of art that were your favorite or ended up being memorable pieces to you?
Yeah, there was a couple that I really liked. And you know, it's funny, probably most of these things will go unnoticed to the audience. They won't realize that that was a blank spot on the wall before that we specifically made a picture and put them there. But one of my favorites was we actually made a gold record, or what looked like a gold record to the audience. So Allison is a musician who wrote a hit song, and that's kind of the backstory of how they got this Beverly Hills house. Between him and her and Ira, they've had some success in the industry. And so we wanted to kind of portray that she's a musician, so we actually printed a poster, and we took a picture of her, and our artist, Anna, again, made this really nice poster, and then I printed it, and we framed it, and we put it up. We actually even put like what would be lyrics to the song, although it just happens to be a great quote, I think, by even Jimi Hendrix, that just goes on there. So it's one of those things that just takes up a nice spot on the wall, but it looked really nice. And there was another one that when we're in the kitchen, we're shooting across the table, it was just a blank wall, and we put this nice picture of a guy playing a piano. And it just really kind of fits what we're doing. And so throughout there's those little nuances, or even the wedding picture like I mentioned earlier. It's just kind of funny. It was weird to me to see Ryan and Kelly in this wedding picture and it's not Ryan and his wife, which I'm so used to seeing in his house because it's his wedding picture he has hanging on his wall. But I actually, all the pictures, the little pieces of all of them I really enjoyed. Like what Anna did was pretty special. I mean, she's a really good graphic designer, and she really did a great job with some of this Photoshop. It was pretty impressive, and in the end, I think all those little pieces came together.
Talking about the production design, how important was it to have such a good location since it was the only one used in the film?
That was paramount. I mean, that was when we first started writing this, and we came back, okay, we have one location. Well, we better find the perfect location because that's all you're going to see. Other movies or bigger blockbuster films are going to wow you with location. They're going to, you're going to be shooting in New Zealand and you're going to see these lush forests, and we're in one little house. And it was originally just supposed to be a small apartment because the original script, we didn't have stairs. So when we had the stairs, all of a sudden we're having to rewrite for the stairs, but it made a huge deal. When you bring together the posters, this nice location, the jewelry and the wardrobe and these nice pieces, for the first time, I can look at this film and say, okay, we thought it through versus if anybody who saw our last film, JPRS, we had a detective who came to set in an orange shirt and we let that fly because we were in such a rush to get stuff done, and that never would have happened in a real film, and that's what we did on this one. It was real. We really took that step on this. That was really important. But the location, Paul and Gina, thank you, was it made the movie in the end. I mean, because we had a lot of fun with it.
Great. Now that the film is wrapped and in the can, where do you hope it goes in terms of destination?
We have a couple goals that Ryan and I talked about prior to making the movie. Was one I'd like to do is I want to get into at least one festival, and I would really like to win some kind of award at a festival because I've always wanted to say I'm an award-winning feature filmmaker. I can say I'm an award-winning film because of The Rambler. They won the Bare Bones Festival in Oklahoma for Best Western, but now I want to actually say, okay, I made a feature film that won an award. A little harder with comedy, but I think we can do that. So I'd like to get into a couple festivals, and I would really like to get on Netflix, whether it be streaming or something that you can get on. I think it would just be something that would just help us learn the distribution portion of it. If we can get those two things, I would feel like we got some success on this. And the other piece would be to really just kind of make a name for ourselves a little bit so that we have other scripts that we've worked on that maybe we could get some financial backing on those and actually put something, that has some actual financial money behind, something that has some money behind it to help make it a little bit better.
So tell me what's left in post.
Right now, we are finishing our first cut. Ryan and I are still bickering on whether or not scenes 1 and 10 are done, but we're pretty close to a final film lock. So once that's done, then we'll hand it over to audio. Audio will master, and then we're gonna go through and continue to color balance and sharpen the overall feel of the actual film, add some music, and just kind of master it all together. Once that's done, we'll actually be ready to announce a premiere date and start talking about it. I mean, we're looking end of spring, early summer. We don't want to give ourselves a date just yet, but once we get closer, we'll have a date, and we'll actually have a premiere here in Simi Valley at a discount theater out there that we can rent out that we've shown our other movies at.
I gotta say, Joe, I'm so impressed with how many different things you do in film. As a filmmaker, what do you ultimately want to do?
That is the $1 million question. You know, I've been asked that. I'm kind of I don't want to say flavor of the week, because I mean I stick to it, but I do like a little bit of everything. I personally think I like to produce the most. It's something that I tend to be better at. That's really where my drive is good, or is the most prolific. And I like acting, but in this film I didn't get to act because I was in a different state and couldn't do the rehearsals. It would be a lot harder to do. I do like acting, but ultimately, I think produce, direct is where I want to focus on. But really, producing is something I like. I really enjoyed production design too. It's something I might want to focus on a little bit more in some of the next features, because that really is how the whole thing looks, is how your production design looks. So I don't know, everything. I just want to do it all. Can I just do it all? I'm just a one-man army.
Hey, yeah, sure.
Although I do know if you focus on something, you'll get better at it. So I should pick something that I want to be my art. But I just like doing a little bit of everything right now. It's a great way to learn all of it as quick as possible.
Absolutely. Now, you were talking a little bit about having the film premiere possibly early summer. What's it going to be like? What are you going to feel like when you finally see it up on the big screen?
You know, so this will be my third one that we're showing at this theater. The first one, I knew going in it wasn't that great, and because it was our first film, it was a learning experience, it wasn't that great. The second one, I was extremely nervous because I was in it, and there were some risky shots that I was involved in. And then this one, I'm a lot more relaxed because I'm not in it, but I've also been playing this one up as our next best thing. And I think after our last film, we have a little bit to prove to people that we don't just make horror movies where people are dying every other minute, that we can make something that can make you laugh and make you think. So I'm going to be excited, and I'm going to be nervous as well, because I feel like the last film we talked a lot about it, but it wasn't quite live up to its expectations, and I hope this one can do that. We put together a pretty big publicity program for this, where we'll be posting on Facebook and doing trailers and these interviews and other things, and we're gonna really publicize this. So hopefully we can bring these people in and make them appreciate our film. So
well, I'm excited to see it. If this was happening right before the premiere, if we're talking about the audience watching it for the first time, are there any final words you would like to say to them before seeing the film for the first time?
Have fun. Nothing is what it seems, and remember that we shot this on $2,500.
All right, thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Joe.
Pat. Have a good one.